like that's the player's job. It's like, they want to swing for the fences. They want to hit
Sure.
home runs. They want to make it an exciting game. They have to protect the brand. And I'm sure they're fighting for their next contract. So if you bring up some information that's going to be going against the grain or in a negative connotation, that's going to affect them.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I am Jordan Skop with Brianna Ludwig. We're August 11th, 2026, definitely in the middle of the baseball season throughout professional baseball. It's exciting always to come on and do an opening talking about how foul ball safety now started, try to get everything in I can over a number of years, 7 seasons, and also usually bringing in some alarming news updates, which I typically find new things all the time. And then after that, I'll bring on our guest host. We're excited to always do that. That's what we all look forward to. So, but before that, foul ball safety now started back in 2019, seeing something very disturbing on morning news. I realized at the time that there were always strings and conditions attached to going to baseball games, seeing baseball hitting children. I'm wondering why they would be exposed to these type of situations. And did those families really know that there were those regular experiences of beeline line drives coming towards their heads? I don't think they would have been in a position to put their families at harm's way. So my job is to bring whatever I can, all of the information that I've accumulated over the last 7 seasons with Brendan, an investigative reporter, who shortly after this incident happened in 2019, I organized and I found somebody by the name of Brendan, an investigative reporter, and we've been just tracking all things from the baseball situation when it comes to the nets, the lack of nets, also all the information we discovered from interviews with victims and family members, interviews with many baseball players, interviews with a lot of other insiders, even a couple of ESPN announcers who one guy actually called major league games for a season or two in a major city. Interviews with guys that are physics experts and guys that have testified at trials. And I've also been contacted just in the last, well, it was in 2025, 2 lawyers had contacted me regarding lawsuits. One was on the website, or at least listed on the website of Foul Ball Safety Now, Unknown Modesto, where a client of this lawyer was actually struck outside the ballpark. And then you'd soon to realize that standing outside in the parking lot in many of these professional cities is definitely a risky proposition. One or many balls during 3 or 4 hours batting practice and games will either hit the sidewalk or the car window, and yes, somebody in the head. You'll even hear sometimes the organ player at these ballparks make the sarcastic sound of the window breaking. Well, they ought to add to their repertoire the sound of a ball hitting a head, because that would be certainly a wake-up call for those fans, but it shouldn't come that way. Unfortunately, management has had opportunities after opportunities after opportunities, certainly every winter. Since 1970, when a 14-year-old boy got hit at Dodger Stadium and died, you would have thought every winter would have been time to reevaluate how protocols will be put forward. And it's always remained pretty much in micro print on back of tickets. And now you got to go searching on your e-ticket for those terms and conditions. But it's still not appropriate education. So people have seen that micro print on back of tickets, but nobody ever not went to the game. How about giving us a one pager and saying maybe this isn't a good idea? If they ever did that, I think the course of baseball history and protocols would have been a lot different. You would have had regulators on the scene long ago, because a lot of those regulators are also baseball fans, and it'd be like, wait a second, there's something's wrong here. Why are they getting away just acting willy-nilly and acting like a traveling carnival without a license? And I think we would all come to those kind of conclusions, but that hasn't happened. So we're in 2026. Brendan and I keep on meeting new people that are becoming, we call it less than 1% injured club. We know there's 100 million baseball fans, and maybe not a million people have been affected forever, but there's certainly been thousands upon thousands of people that have been affected forever. Brendan and I have interviewed many of these sad souls, and unfortunately, every year, including this year, there's new people entering into that less than 1% injured club. So there's always new entries. We want to stop that, not only inside the ballpark, but outside. And it happened to me 20 years ago with a group of people when we were in Brooklyn, New York, Coney Island, standing outside on Surf Avenue, when a ball just came right over the side and hit a young person we were with right in the forearm. Now, it was long before I got started, but we just know of all this documentation, and I have a new link on the website called New York Batshit Crazy, because just in the last 13, 14 months, we have 5 separate incidences, 4 at Yankee Stadium, 1 at Citi Field. So we have those videos up for people. And I just spoke with a lawyer who's representing one of those plaintiffs, well, one of those people. Maybe the other people won't sue, or maybe none of them, none of the other people fortunately didn't get hurt. But this particular lady, yes, she got hurt, and they're suing for $10 million, and she probably has some very serious injuries. And I did speak to the lawyer last week, and I'm attempting to try to find a lawyer in New York who's willing to go to court, something called injunctive relief. That would put a message in front of a judge immediately saying Yankees should be suspending all their games until further notice, because obviously, why are you opening up your doors every game and allowing bats to fly over nets? It's a head scratcher. I'm in contact with lawyers that I know who are trying to find me lawyers in New York, potentially, who are ready to make an appearance, because that's really all it is, I think. It's an appearance. They're going to write something up and try to twist the arm of the judge, say, Judge, this is why you need to suspend the games. That's what it is. A lot of the other lawyers who, may claim on their website that they're there to champion the cause, this is small potatoes for them. They'd rather represent somebody for $10 million. I want to just make a statement and show the judge the urgency, and I do probably need a lawyer to go to court. So we'll see how that all plays out. We're on August 11th. It is what I choose to do with my part-time because it's important. Brianna, how are you today?
Doing great, Jordan. Excited to dive into this conversation today. So, without further ado, I'd love to invite on our guest host for the day. He is a Los Angeles based actor, originally from Minnesota. Welcome, Tim Herkenhoff.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey, Tim. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's another beautiful day in sunny California.
Excellent. I'm mostly in Florida these days, but I'm from New York. So today I happen to be in New Jersey, and I will get through the day. And that's the way it rolls for today. How's it going? What did you think about discovering foul ball safety now from the last time we spoke?
I've thought more and more about it, and it does raise a curiosity because you do, like, whenever you go to a ballpark, you do see the net around home plate, but it's obviously a protective mechanism and it's doing its job, but there is vulnerable parts of this ball field, and you see these balls flying out, and it's like, oh my god, like this, if it does hit someone, it does raise your conversation in your head. You're like, yeah, why isn't there been something done about this? If there's been all these incidents, it's kind of crazy.
It is. We follow the craziness, and we know that it's not a matter of if the next head will be crushed, it's when. So many people are self-reporting their injuries on TikTok, so we find out every few months when we decide to go through each team, we can pick up a lot of data. People can see fallible safety now and discover for themselves self-reported injuries. And it's not good. Even with nets, balls are still making their way over nets. And to create a baseball civilized society, unfortunately, we haven't met the right influencer other than myself, and trying to just keep the collection of data coming in, and trying to document all things business as usual and history of a lot of things, I'm guess we're just gonna have to try to keep going, and then hopefully, as we meet new guests like yourself, uh, you'll then take it upon yourself to introduce your community to this matter as well.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. It's such a niche thing to get into, but just for you to, take that ball and run with it, no pun intended,
Yeah,
to actually do something about it, I really commend you. As like I said, I'm from Minnesota and growing up going to a few Minnesota Twins games, I remember vividly. This was after the Kirby Puckett era and, won a few World Series. And we were so excited as, a farm kid. We didn't get to travel much and get this experience to go down to Minneapolis and see a Twins game. And it was, just a spectacle. But my dad was like, oh, yeah, yeah, boys. I went with my two brothers and we brought our gloves, like growing up playing like softball, like slow pitch softball. And we're like, "Oh my god, wouldn't that be so cool?" And you see it, and all of a sudden, some balls get close to you, and I remember as a kid, I'm like, "Oh my god, that is coming in fast." Just experiencing that, and then I remember when I was a teenager, I was a huge fan of Ken Griffey Jr., and this is right after he got traded from the Seattle Mariners to the Cincinnati Reds,
right.
and I remember there was a game, and he sliced the ball, and it went into I think it was the right field, and it struck this he had to have been 5 years old, but hit his head, and, his parents were holding him, but, it came in so fast, but, it basically, like, knocked him out, and he was bleeding, and, it
Right.
was just it you're obviously gonna have this response to it. It's like, my god, like, you have so much empathy, and seeing Ken Griffey Jr., like, he could tell it hit him as well, and it was just like he had a tremendous amount of guilt, but and I'm sure, like, he probably made an effort to apologize to the family, but yeah, it is insane that there's nothing being done about this.
Yeah, the villain, people may say, is only MLB, but I think the villain is also MLB Players Union because
What do you
sure.
think so?
Well, they yeah, because they negotiate for collective bargaining every 4 seasons, and I think there's gonna be potentially some work stoppage at the end of this season going into next season, or they have to work out some issues. But unfortunately, it's not about netting. It's about a lot of other things that are in the best interest of the players. Used to be just 30 MLB teams in the players union, and every year they would negotiate for collective bargaining. And now they have the minor leagues as well. The last few years, they're not only 30 teams they represent now altogether, I think, around 150 teams. So there's been opportunity after opportunity after opportunity for the MLB Players Union, which supposedly may have brought up the matter of netting to the players, to the MLB, saying, what about the issue about netting? And maybe all they said was, what about it? Because I believe if the MLB Players Union said, we're just not going to hit babies anymore with balls, it's all about balls that go 100 or very fast are going in those areas, and it's insanity. So we need to call a timeout until we address it. Now, I don't see the MLB Players Union to ever be able to prove anything like that. So I hold them accountable for not drawing a line in the sand and just saying, no, 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 it's a non starter. We haven't gotten it done up until this point. Let's just call an outside agency and watch how many architects, engineers, and designers can create a baseball civilized society and have renderings within a day. And I think that's where we're at. This isn't like flying to Pluto, Tim. It's not like it's unrealistic. It's like, how do you tell Brianna and her child, who's 2, exactly where to park the car and no strings attached, and where to go inside and have a snack and have a good time and no strings attached? But it's not reality. And why aren't we in that place right now, Tim? It's not such a it's not such a big ask. We can create expectations for all. wherever the risks remain, wherever the risks don't remain. But it's never been revealed. It's only been disclosed in microprint where they're just telling you in a paragraph or whatever, we're not responsible. But once you're at the game already and you see a sign, Tim, the last I checked, we're not action figures and superheroes. And we're not even able to defend ourselves, even if we were supposedly paying attention all the time. So that's what I have to say.
I guess so. Backing up a bit. So, what is it about the
Sure.
players' union that
Mhm.
they want to neglect this
That's
idea? And
Mhm.
do you think it's just simply because this is America's oldest pastime, and that's how these stadiums are set up, and to go against the grain is going against baseball, or do you think it's like a cost effective thing for the stadiums? Like what? I might be beating a
I
dead
don't
horse here,
know.
but
No, I mean, of course, it's certainly what would MLB Players Union's position. I guess, why would it not be their position to make sure that their rank and file isn't
yeah,
slamming
exactly.
babies with balls and bats? And unfortunately, they won't be able to show, I believe, I don't know because I haven't seen the minutes, but if they say they fought for more netting, can I please see what you actually fought for? Because I believe the players union could have said, "We're just not gonna be hitting balls at babies anymore." Till we finally call an outside agency that's gonna finally address this like it should be. Because again, it's not the cost. It's not the cost. Whether it's 40,000 or 200,000 to create a baseball civilized society for billions of dollars is chump change, right? It's like, just get it done. Create a civilized society for the young people, for all people, and they can know exactly what their expectations are. Nobody wants to go to the game with unknown factors, Tim. I believe we've all been going to the game for the tailgate, for the hanging out in the parking lot, no strings and conditions attached, not thinking how many balls are going to be flying over the side in 3 or 4 hours, or going inside and sitting down and having a snack with your young family and knowing the visuals are gonna be beautiful, and there won't be any worry about any ball interfering for the rest of our lives. But it's a foreign concept where we could just have this conversation, and it won't be a foreign concept, and that's what I wanna do. And we need to let everyone know from the past to the present, people can check out Exhibit A1 on the website. You'll start scratching your head when you just see a report that Brendan and I put together, a published report from 25 and our own research, you can almost retrace your steps, Tim. All the games you went to where there was no nets at all, you're going to get offended. Trust me. Hundreds of thousands of these experiences are flying inside and outside these smaller ballparks. And you're gonna be like, just how many of those on the inside were going at 100, and how many were really flying outside as I was parking my car thinking, "What could I be worried about?" Because heck, when you see baseball players hitting balls over the side, they have a destination. Those mini missiles will find the camp bus loading or unloading. It's just unbelievable that we still live this way. And there's solutions out there, and there's architects, engineers, and designers that I don't believe are part of MLB that should have been all along, and it would have created the baseball civilized society, certainly back in 1970 when a 14-year-old boy got hit and died a few days later at Dodger Stadium, to the present time, everyone would have known, and we would have had a lot more information, and there would have been a lot more protocols and regulations and yeah, so it's all about this communication and us 3 starting a conversation and letting everyone figure it out and just being effective at it. So we will continue to do that.
yeah, I think that's valid, and like I said, I commend you. Is which this might be a random question, but which
Yeah.
stadiums, you talk about balls flying over the stadiums and, saying hitting into a parking lot. And I get it, like it was batting practice or during a game. And, like that's the player's job. It's like, they want to swing for the fences. They want to hit
Sure.
home runs. They want to make it an exciting game. But which stadiums do you think are the most ones to be cautious of or the most vulnerable?
Sure. I'll answer the first part, which you said, of course, the baseball players want to hit it as hard as they need to hit it. That's their job. And then I'll get to your question about what ballparks may be safer than others. So, in regards to these guys, I've been holding meetings with young players. Brendan and I have interviewed more than 30 players, even the men who played in the game 30 years ago, 40 years ago. They are interested in having a longer conversation with us. They know that playing the games years past and to the present time, their psychological well-being hasn't really been addressed because young people are very open with me at these conferences I'm doing. And they tell me things like, "I'm not able to swing the bat without anxiety. I can't even play the game free and clear. I'm worried on kids' nights I may hurt young people." So they've been conditioned into silence. These younger people, why? Because the older generations played under those situations, Tim. Isn't that crazy? And in regards to the next part, I can't say one ballpark is safer than another. I won't do that because until there's an outside agency above my pay grade who certifies a ballpark as it's good to go, then we're all in the unknown factors, Tim. Everything is unknown from parking to going in. Do some
Yeah.
ballparks have more netting than others? What does that actually mean? Is it high enough? Not really, because we're where balls going over nets. So we just really want to effectively start the conversation because I know there's architects, engineers, and designers in 30 professional cities and 169 other professional cities. I was following 199 ballparks, Tim, all the affiliates of MLB, some indie leagues. Now college is on my radar. Queens College student called me up, said, "Hey, Jordan, worried out balls are going over the side. There's an elementary school right next door." And you'll see that I'm on a letter writing campaign a while back. I did 5 letters. On the 4th letter to the Queens College administration, the Queens College newspaper reporter had the courage and got a quote from the athletic director. But all zip codes and all colleges, for sure, and even all levels of baseball probably are worthy of a further examination. And that's okay. There's architects, engineers, and designers that can probably figure out a baseball civilized society for the thousands of baseball fields. But I'm here really to discuss what I've been doing. I'm welcoming all information from all levels of baseball. So it's exciting. We're getting calls from people that are getting their not it's not exciting to hear this, but it's exciting getting new exposure, and parents are worried about kids playing on their front lawn because balls are leaving the high school field. And somebody telling me, "Oh, we can't have soccer going on while baseball's going on." Well, soccer, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about it." Good start. We did a Google Earth, Tim, of 46 fields on D1, 2, and 3. So we know there's 900 MLB players, give or take. There's 5 to 8,000 professional players maybe, in addition to the 900. And then there's another, how many? 35 to 50,000 college players? And of course, the lower levels there are, the more players there are, of course. So it's a huge game and balls are being hit hard all the time, and people are getting hurt all the time. But until we finally address this, and I'm happy to be encouraging to people in local zip codes where high schools and other places are having compromised issues, it's good that people can pay attention to it. There's architects, engineers, and designers, Tim, on every level that could whip up renderings. MLB, I don't think can ever show they've ever had a team of sophistication of architects, engineers, and designers following and monitoring the ongoing crisis. I think with a little bit of research, Tim, we're going to find out it's probably been one guy at MLB wearing too many hats, not worthy of billion-dollar organizations' trust to the general public. So, we're just in the middle of season 7, Tim, and we just want to present all the collective information that we keep on gathering.
Yeah, totally. No, and you got a brought up a great point, with the players and getting their feedback and, their fear. And I think I thought about, the players, they're in a compromised position because, well, they're a professional and they're getting paid for this. And I think a big issue is they have to protect the brand, whatever organization they're playing for. And I'm sure they're fighting for their next contract. So if you bring up some information that's going to be going against the grain or their liability to their organization or, in a negative connotation, that's going to affect them. I've heard from listening to different NFL players and how they have to bite their tongue and,
Sure.
it's protect the big logo, protect the brand of the NFL. You want it to be a positive reinforced statement. So I feel like that's a great resource for you with all these players, especially in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, on the website, the MLB Players Union signed up with some wellness organization, and I sent them a pretty strong letter maybe 2 months after they just started working with MLB Players Union, saying, "Maybe you bit off a little bit more than you could chew," talking about the wellness of these players. They ain't so well. Because they're holding back, and the parents of all the young players who are worried about, minor leaguers and professional players that are all worried inevitably that they may hurt someone. Their parents have been on the scene the whole time, and they were adults a lot longer than their young adult kids, and they didn't speak much about it. So, in a
Sure.
way, the parents don't wanna upset the apple cart for the young child for their child that's trying to be a major leaguer or a professional player. So, again, there's a lot of accountability. Again, I'm meeting the sad souls that are at the expense of the status quo. And we continue to meet those sad souls under the status quo. So, yeah, that's why I feel like, going to court in New York, which is what I'm in the middle of trying to do right now, and showing a judge a reason why to suspend games, it would make a big statement. Even if it was only 1 day, they would come up with a temporary, at least to satisfy the judge. There's no way the judge is going to shut them down for the rest of the year, but that would make national news. So I am trying to show the judge, hey, this is why you need to suspend games at Yankee Stadium. How many more incidences do we need? Obviously, the lady just got hit and she's suing for $10 million. And then there was an incident following Freddie Freeman in July 17th. He threw a bat over the net. 4 incidents at Yankee Stadium in 13 months and 1 at Citi Field this year. It's not acceptable. So, and that's just what we follow. I follow New York Mets and New York Yankees on YouTube. And I'm not investing watching in the other 13 games a night. I watch 1 or 2 on YouTube, 10-minute versions, and I get these videos in the edited versions of the game. They think it's cool. When the editors think it's cool, well, it ain't. And you know what, Tim? When people look at the website at Foul Ball 70 Now, T-Mobile, during the playoffs in '25, again, it's obviously other places too, you see the bat going over the net. It was a broken bat, Tim, and you even hear the announcer when they were showing the upon replay, he's like, "Yikes, look out." And nobody, Tim, in America put 2 and 2 together that that broken bat could potentially spear your heart or your neck. And I'm like, I'm wondering why nobody even associated that. And he was probably, giving a guarded, enthusiastic response as opposed to, "My family will never be there." He's not gonna say that because that would bring too much attention to the issue. They're sort of like deflecting. That's how they roll, and the baseball writers too. They look the other way. They too don't wanna bite the hand that feeds them, and they're reporters, but they're not investigative reporters, and the investigative reporter who will eventually do a story on this or with me is gonna have to include in their story all the other writers they sat with in at journalism school, that they chose to keep the job status quo as opposed to, maybe stepping out of their lane and finally exposing what writers should be doing is telling us all what's really happening. So that's my take on that, and we'll continue.
Yeah, very interesting. I know what your intentions are going to
Sure.
court like this, but
If I could
what
this week or next week, absolutely.
and what do you think the feedback you're gonna get? Like, what's your, like,
I just wanna
honest
know that I presented myself to the judge, because you can see a judge in one day if you can deem something as an emergency. Is this an emergency? I think it is. I don't think it's
Yeah,
acceptable
I
that
agree.
it could happen tonight. Some child from a wealthy family or who has corporate friends is gonna be exposed to some freaking bat coming at them. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. So, if nothing else, I'm going to make the attempt, and I hope the judge suspends games, and, it'll make the Yankees get an attorney and appear, and that's just the way it rolls. I think that's the way it rolls. I did something in Illinois a year ago. I was in court from a couple years ago, July of '23 to July of '24. We went a few rounds in court. That was because of a situation in Peoria, Illinois. It was lack of netting where they were one of the worst offenders, and it was a whole story. But it's all there on the website for people to see and discover all the different links. And, it's good that you're here today, Tim.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you laying all this groundwork and, investigating and doing your research and due diligence to take action on this. I think it's a commendable act. Yeah, and I wish all more power to you. I think it's
We
great.
we we appreciate that.
Sometimes, occasionally, a foul ball injury will go viral. The video of the person getting struck, and a lot of the responses that we see online typically turns into like victim blaming, pay attention, etc. And as an actor, you often have to have this ability to deeply understand an experience that isn't necessarily your own. So, I was hoping you could shed some light on how you develop empathy for a character you're playing. If, let's say, it's a role where your character has a life that's completely different from your own, and how can we promote and develop empathy for these victims, especially in the internet culture that exists today?
Wow, that's a great question. I guess, based on the first part of your question, playing a character that's different than myself is, I guess what I do is I mean, I try to draw it from any like personal experience of myself. And if it doesn't resonate, I try to find examples or just a truth of any scenario of a character that's just going to bring out reality. And that might be from research, based on a similar person or character, but actually just find the humanity in that and find a reality based position with that. And finding I guess, the sense of truth of humanity and try to make, that the kind of a hero response to that character. I'm not sure if that's, too much of a kind of a woo-woo answer, but yeah, that's how I would perceive it. And I guess based on a viral clip that they're, blaming whoever's like, say, a guardian or the parent of that child, I think that's a little unfair just because it's baseball is coming in so fast, and there might be a distraction of, another kid right next to them or, like, there's so many variables. Like, that's hard to, say that they weren't paying attention unless they're staring at their phone they're on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But I guess what I do anytime there is a negative situation, I'll be like, "Okay, put myself in their shoes. What would that be like?" And I think everyone needs to be reminded of that. Like, what if they were in that situation? And it's a lot of times there's on like anything online or social media based, there is so much negative connotation on blame or just I guess just certain bitterness, which I don't always love. But just having a human empathy, I think that's really where we all got to bring it home.
Human empathy, pretty good. I will push back on the paying attention component as much as I'm not into the distraction of my fellow baseball neighbor if they're certainly talking and I'm trying to concentrate on the game. But I do believe once you are in a seat, Tim, and you can comment again if you'd like, that once you are there with your family and the kids want to play patty cake and you are having a tender moment with your partner or whatever it may be, I did emphasize earlier that we were never superheroes or action figures and maybe never in a position, regardless what we were doing or how much we were paying attention, to be in a position to get out of the way. And I think that has to be established. And since I've been on this matter for a while, I think I'm safe to say that we definitely are not in a position to defend ourselves. And all the other stuff, yeah, may create more distraction. The kids playing, the family, the loved ones kissing, or you just, chewing and doing and just hanging out, which you should be doing. That's my approach. If you feel that the conversation is needed to go further on protocols at games, then, and that's what I do believe, then more information will come out. And hopefully people will start adding to the sentiment that there are strengths and conditions attached to going to the game regardless. And if the chance is better, but we shouldn't be in a chance is better. Sure, if rocks were coming down from the 40th floor, 18 times a week in a particular street in New York, you wouldn't be going down there with the kid, and and you're not in a position to defend yourself. And I just feel like we need to finally create expectations for all and all the other stuff about what may be further distracting you from the game is not really relevant until we address the root of the issue, I think. So I didn't mean to go longer, Tim, but I'm not sure if you agree with that sentiment that maybe the root of the problem is maybe our expectations aren't realistic about what's going to happen at the game, and that comes before all the other stuff, and that's the noise we hear from management or from the other fans, but I think we need to get to the root of our expectations.
No, I believe that's a fair assessment. I guess, if you would put up these, barriers and blockers that they could, fans who are attending these stadiums would have the peace of mind and safety that
Peace of
they are in
mind.
a safe position. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the
Let's
best case scenario. So,
let's try to create peace of mind for everyone.
absolutely.
And where there's
I
unknown factors and there's age appropriate people that sign things, that's a whole nother matter. But there's certainly enough room in the ballpark for peace of mind. I think we can definitely start with something like that.
Amen.
Guys, terrific. Tim, thank you so much. Brianna, as always, we will do it again soon, everyone. Thank you.